Welcome to This Week in Wrestling History.
All right, welcome back again, everyone. Episode 20
something.
Yeah. Sorry, we lost count a little bit, but anyways, I'm Ryan. That's Jacob. This is This Week in Wrestling History. So we got some Royal Rumbles this week for you.
Yeah, we're going to talk Royal Rumble 2010. It's one of my personal favorite Rumbles purely because of who won that year.
It was interesting for me to go back and watch because I had never actually watched this one back in the day when it was happening.
And we're going to look at 2019, which happened
2 days ago, our time, 6 days ago, listener time.
Yeah.
All right. Before we get to that, anything else going on that we want to touch on? Again, big thanks to Jordan for last week. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was a really fun interview, and it seems like people have started to take notice of the interview. There's quite a few more downloads this week.
Doing really good. So, again, big thanks to Jordan, the Legacy Falco. Go check him out. And if you're in, let's see, upstate New York, probably downstate New York, Canada.
Anywhere from like Ohio to Maine to Canada and down to Pennsylvania.
I would assume PA. Yeah. So, yes, definitely check him out.
Kids everywhere.
He is. He gets around. Not like that. I know. I'm the worst.
Okay, so which Rumble are we starting with?
So what I'm thinking is let's talk about the 2010 Rumble. And while we're talking about that, we can actually fit in kind of some stuff about the 2019 Rumble. Do a little compare and contrast thing.
That'll work.
All right. So let's start with the 2010 Royal Rumble. Starts off with a ECW match.
Yeah. So this was when WWE ECW was around.
I believe this is the final pay-per-view match for WWE ECW.
Correct. It is also the second to last title match for ECW.
Yeah, there would be one more ECW title match after this between the two same guys, and there would be a title change then, not tonight.
Nope. Do you even really count that as a title change? Because they announced after this Royal Rumble that the brand was going to be disappearing. And
yeah, it shouldn't really count. It does. It's in the books as Big Zeke as being the last ever ECW champion,
but Christian says he's the last ECW champion.
I think we give it to Christian. So anyways, if you couldn't pick up from what we were saying, ECW Heavyweight Championship match between Captain Charisma, Christian, and Ezekiel Jackson, Big Zeke. Yeah, that's really about the best you can say about this match. Is it wasn't awful, but it was nothing special either.
No, it wasn't anything great because, I mean, as fantastic as Christian always is, he can only do so much to carry a match.
Right, and Ezekiel Jackson ends up getting a little bit better in his career, but not anything significantly. He's retired now. He spent a year in Lucha Underground their first year. He was Big Rick.
I mean, he's literally just a big guy who can kind of move.
Yeah, he's a big guy. He's in really good shape, but okay, that's about it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I wish there was more to say about this. I'd like to talk more about Christian because he was always one of my favorites. He was super over at this point in time, but you can only do so much with what you're given in this match. I mean,
yeah,
the brand was dying. The story was more between Christian and Regal than Christian and Big Zeke.
Right. And like I said, Christian can only do so much to carry that match. I mean, he was essentially the storyteller and did most of the heavy lifting, quote unquote, of this match.
Right. And oddly enough, Christian's size, I think, hurt this match a little bit because Christian's a big guy.
He's tall, yeah.
Yeah, he's 6'3", 6'4", so about my height. About my weight, except in better shape.
But you have him going against Zeke, who's probably 6'5", closer to 300.
Right, so imagine if it was someone more, say, John Morrison or Rey Mysterio's size. It would be a much different looking match.
Yeah, because
it would make Ezekiel Jackson look better in comparison.
Yeah, it's one of those where Christian is playing the role of the quote-unquote high flyer. he's moving around a lot. He's doing a lot of the quick stuff,
Right.
but he's a bigger guy, so it looks funny.
Yeah, they're both bigger guys, so that dynamic you normally want with someone like Ezekiel Jackson, where you want a slightly smaller guy to really kind of emphasize how big and how monstrous. It's kind of like putting Big Show up against Kane, where you're like, all right, these guys are both giant, but they almost both look smaller by comparison because you don't have that contrast there. All right, so I'm going to actually kind of compare this to something weird because I actually haven't watched the match, but I know it occurred
From
the 2019.
2019?
Yeah.
Okay.
Would be the U.S. Championship match where they had a title change on the pre-show.
Yeah, so it was Rusev versus
Shinsuke.
Yep, for Rusev's U.S. belt, which Rusev had won off of Shinsuke 40 days ago-ish.
Right, about a month and a week.
Yeah. So kind of the same thing. You have Rusev, who's the bigger guy at 6'2", probably a solid 260.
I would probably guess
280.
These days, yes, he's actually slimmed down. He's bulked up, but like slimmed down. Does that make sense? Like he's in much better shape, but he's still big.
Yeah. But then you also have Shinsuke, who's 6'2", probably 220.
Yeah. Again, definitely the quote unquote smaller, but he's just as tall as Rusev.
I mean, they're both I'm dwarfed by both of them.
Well,
So
that's because you're a midget, but
yeah, okay.
anyways. So yeah, that was a really odd one where that match could have been built really well, but it wasn't. And then it was thrown on the pre-show, which we know Rusev has been not happy about his placement in the past. This ain't going to help.
No, and this is probably the last. This isn't good timing for that.
No, exactly what I was about to say. This is not a time when you want internet darlings and people that can really get a good crowd reaction, which Rusev is both of.
Right. I mean, he's a homegrown WWE guy.
Yeah.
However,
he hasn't been happy.
But anytime he says Rusev Day, the entire arena blows up.
Yeah. So this guy could be out the door now that there's good places for him to go. Even if he doesn't go to AEW and ends up in New Japan, he'd be a monster in New Japan, and he'd be so welcomed there.
They would be able to book him as their monster heel.
He'd be like the new Vader, except he can move even better.
Right.
It'd
which
be
is
ridiculous.
Insane. Yeah. He would do great in both places. I mean, even if he went, I don't want to say a step back, because ROH is definitely doing different stuff. He would do great with ROH as well.
Yeah, this guy would be great. And he has great instincts. He has great ring presence. He's a great character. He can be really funny and really threatening.
And he's athletic as all hell.
Yeah, so
a guy that he's almost like he's a smaller version of Brock Lesnar. You don't expect a guy that big to move the way he does.
Yeah, totally fair. So not a good time to kind of be playing fast and loose with those guys, and that feels like what they did.
Which is kind of funny because going back to some other news that came out today, aside from the Rumble, which we'll get to the reasons why this happened, Dean Ambrose decided he's not going to sign a new contract.
Yeah, so apparently another guy on the roster that has a lot of potential, not given a lot to work with.
Yeah, he stated he was unhappy with the way his character was when he came back from his injury. And if you think about it, guy he hasn't done a whole lot since he came back from injury, and he was kind of tapering off after or before his injury.
Right.
I mean, the pinnacle was his WWE title run, which he had at back in 2016?
2016, late 16, early 17 maybe? But
yeah, so this guy who
probably, yeah, something like that. But
guy who was at literally the pinnacle of the sport at one point now is relegated to working from bottom up back to the mid card, and then kind of can't get past that.
Right, and Dean Ambrose, another guy that's never been shy about making it known that when he's unhappy. And I almost think it's a little bit interesting comparing Ambrose and Rusev, because with Rusev, you have a guy that, yes, originally came out the gate super hot, built super well. Then they kind of let him taper off a lot, and he went and really made something on his own with this whole Rusev Day thing.
Yeah, he started off, like you said, he was crazy hot as a heel. Everybody hated him when he was a heel.
Oh, and everyone wanted Lana to be... They were waiting for her to dump him, and...
Right. So then he tapers off, but yet it gets to the point where they almost can't ignore him because of...
He goes and gets himself over with this Rusev Day thing.
And his merch sales are through the roof.
Right.
Anytime you see the crowd, there's at least, a couple dozen Rusev Day and Lana Day shirts in the crowd.
And then on the other hand, you have Ambrose, who again came in super hot, but then was kind of given... He was definitely given stuff to work with, but it wasn't great stuff.
Right.
And you always hear talk of like this whole, you got to go and grab the brass ring thing. Rusev did. And they didn't do anything with, like, they dumped on it.
Right. Whereas you have Ambrose, who's essentially handed the brass ring and then is just like,
nah.
Right. Well, not even to say that in a bad way. He goes,
right,
because the script that was handed to him underneath the brass ring was like,
yeah, it's like you're given the brass ring, but then you're also kind of given a slap in the face as you're
taking.
Yeah,
it.
it's like, by the way, here, take this, and oh wait, it wasn't brass, it was lead.
Right.
Crap.
So it's interesting to see the comparisons because I understand why they have the pre-show now to kind of do the whole talk show hype up of the actual show.
Right, and obviously they also do have so much talent that it can't all necessarily fit on the quote-unquote main card. The card was already 5 hours as it was.
Right, the main card was 5 hours.
Right, the main card, which they need to do something about that. It's tougher with the Rumble because both of those Rumble matches themselves take up a solid hour, give or take.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at the men's one from this year, hour and 20 minutes.
Right, and you can't have your entire card be championship match, Rumble, championship. Like, sorry, you'd actually need to have 4 championship matches total between men and women and 2 Rumbles. That may have almost... No, there was a couple additional things on the main card, but...
They had the 2 Rumbles,
tag...
Both women's titles, tag belt, both main titles.
Yeah.
So 5 matches. I mean, I could see if it...
Was the IC belt even anything on the card at all?
No, Bobby Lashley was in the Rumble.
Ugh.
Remember, he lasted 12 seconds.
Well, so was Shinsuke, but he was in multiple matches that night.
Yeah, but...
Anyways...
So it's, again, interesting to see the comparison between the two because you can tell the WWE model hasn't really changed all that much.
Right. It's been a thing. So, all right. Going back to 2010 again. Next up, we had the United States Championship match, which Hay just talked
Shocking.
about. The Miz versus MVP.
Yeah, this was kind of at Miz's ascent to superstardom.
Right.
I'm pretty sure this was his first singles title.
I believe that's correct. Weird kind of spot as MVP as the face going into this whole thing.
Yeah, towards the end of MVP's run, he was more of a face, and people actually liked him because he was the guy that would show up and run down the heels and be like, "What? I'm better than you. I don't get why you're trying to be so hot."
He could talk and he could kind of wrestle. I was never a huge MVP guy.
I mean, his stuff with Matt Hardy was pretty solid when they were feuding over the U.S. belt a while back. But again, like you said,
Yeah, and that kind of sums up this whole match in general.
Well, it seemed rushed because they had a little backstage segment. Miz hadn't defended his title since he got it, and general manager Theodore Long says, "You know what, playa, you're gonna defend it tonight
In a 2-on-2. No.
No.
Didn't he always? Was that his
He
thing?
did sometimes, but no.
All right. Anyways, yeah. It was a pretty flat match, and the Miz won by running outside of the ring, dives back into the ring. MVP follows him out, follows him back in, and Miz just rolls him up when he comes back in.
Yeah,
It's a really odd spot.
it was definitely goofy. I think this match was more to prolong their feud into the Rumble and then get them both out of the Rumble quicker.
That makes sense. And again, we'll get to that when we get to the Rumble itself.
Yeah.
Nothing on 2019 I want to talk about quite yet on this. Let's go to the next 2010 match. We had WWE champion Sheamus versus Randy Orton. This was not a good match by any standards.
I mean, at this point, it was two heels.
Right. So this was Randy starting to come out of Legacy.
But he was still a heel.
But he was definitely still a heel. It was a very weird heel versus heel match on a pay-per-view, and it was the longest singles match of the night, and it ends in a DQ anyways.
Yeah, the whole DQ thing when that happened with
Cody Rhodes.
with Cody coming out, and it just seemed off. It threw off the entire what could have been match.
Yeah, like you could have done a lot more with Randy kind of being that face character that Randy can be. Put him in a little bit of jeopardy. Sheamus is bigger than Randy, so legitimate threat there.
It would work.
So you could have had a lot more sympathy going for Randy to kind of really nudge that turn, but they didn't.
Yeah.
And it wasn't great.
And the ending, can I jump to the ending spot where
Yeah,
Cody intervenes?
Yeah, go ahead. So Cody comes out of the crowd out of nowhere and beans Sheamus while he's outside of the ring, right dead in front of the ref.
Yep, Cody thinks that the ref didn't see it, but he did. Randy gets DQ'd. Randy gets teed off real quick and turns around and starts beating up Cody,
Yep.
blaming him for everything. And then DiBiase Jr. comes out, the other member of
Yep,
Legacy.
the rest of Legacy, the rest of them being one guy, yes.
Right. Comes out and gets in Randy's face for beating up Cody, and then Randy beats up both of them.
Yep, and then turns around into a bro kick.
To me, it's one of those things where the way that they did that, it came off because it was supposed to be that Randy was going to turn face, because in a little bit he does.
Right.
It came off as I felt more sympathetic towards Cody and DiBiase than I did Randy.
Right. So it's 2-on-1, and the one guy like handedly smacks the crap out of the two guys who are smaller than Randy.
Right.
And Cody and Ted weren't really, the crowd didn't love them, but they didn't despise them.
Right. And I think it was more of a
They're like, meh, I guess. Okay.
yeah, and I've seen their dads kind of thing.
Right.
We know who their dads are.
Right.
So,
It's like, oh, we kind of do like Dusty and DiBiase. Like, even though he was clearly a heel, like,
but they were both good at wrestling, so
Yeah,
why
like-
not give their kids a chance?
Right. In retrospect, I think unfortunately a lot of respect for Ted DiBiase Sr. came about after he was done in the ring. I don't think people really appreciated him at the time.
Oh yeah.
Or, I mean, conversely, he was great at playing his character and people hated the crap out of him because he was super hateable and great at being hateable.
Right. That totally makes sense. But it just upset me because they could have done so much more with Randy turning on Legacy. Or why not have DiBiase come out, get in Randy's face, and then the two of them turn on Randy
Right. So,
and set Randy up into a bro kick.
right. And what did Legacy ever really do? They built up Randy better. It didn't do much for Cody. Didn't do anything for Teddy.
No, it was more, I think,
It was a showcase for Randy.
yeah. It was essentially Randy living in the afterlife of Evolution.
Right. So Speaking of WWE title matches with crappy screw job endings,
I don't know what the hell what happened at the 2019 Daniel Bryan versus
AJ match.
yeah. All of a sudden Eric Rowan comes out to
Yeah.
face choke slam, I guess.
No, it was a legit chokeslam. I don't think was it like an iron claw maybe and then lifted.
Yeah,
But-
he had his hand over AJ's face and picked him up.
Yeah, we have a ref bump. We have Eric Rowan jump in and chokeslam AJ. 20 years later, DB makes the cover and gets it.
But it's also Eric Rowan not in his ring gear, not in his sheep's mask, but in a
Lumberjack.
in a flannel with a t-shirt underneath it.
Yeah, he in jeans. He looked like a bit of like a lumberjack.
He looked like Daniel Bryan, except twice the size and bald.
Right. So the match itself was good.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Between those two, it wasn't amazing for those two, so it should have been better than what it was, I feel like. But it wasn't bad by any means.
right, it was one of the better matches on the card,
Definitely.
but you expect more when you have AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan in a
Right.
single match.
You expect 11 out of 10, you get an 8 out of 10, so you feel a little disappointed, but
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, still really good.
Right.
So let's actually get to something we talked about a little bit earlier today when we were at work. Where could we go with this Daniel Bryan Rowan Harper thing? Or sorry, Eric Rowan.
I mean, the only thing I can think of that's happening is, and we'll find out tonight on SmackDown because Daniel Bryan's going to change the landscape of wrestling.
Okay.
Yeah. AEW did that a couple weeks ago, DB.
Little
You're,
late.
you're slow on the uptake there. But he claims he's going to change the landscape, and I can only guess or hope that they do something along the lines of what they did with Bray Wyatt.
So that's kind of what I was saying earlier today is I think it would be super interesting long-term storytelling if, cool, we get Rowan helping out DB. Okay, we're really going to we're going to change the world. We're going to show everyone what a bunch of liars and hypocrites they are. Cool, let's get another big giant dude on board or here or something. We're all feeling this. We're really buying into my message. Me and Mother Earth, and Bray Wyatt walks out after a couple weeks of this and is like, "You've finally become me."
You've finally decided to listen to what I was telling you.
It's like, you've finally come around and are one of us. I think that would be so masterful, where Daniel Bryan, give him a couple weeks of going on about Mother Earth, Mother Earth, Mother Earth.
I mean, he's
And then,
they've already essentially started that with the way he's been. I mean,
right.
did you hear what he said on Raw last night?
No, I don't watch Raw.
So he was there, and so he showed up with Rowan because of
Because Seth could have said who he wanted to fight.
right, and Trips told Seth he had to pick by the end of the night.
Yep.
So DB's talking about Seth and claims that Seth is promoting pollution and all of this stuff, or air pollution, because of the "burn it down" phrase. And
going real deep on that.
but the way he sold it, and the way I keep saying Harper,
Yeah, Rowan.
the way Rowan is standing behind DB with these big eyes, nodding his head like, "Yup, he's right. If they moved into this idea that we have with Bray Wyatt showing up and being like, "Yes, you're here.
Yeah, you got it.
You're following the buzzards finally." It would just make sense.
It's like, you followed them and they led you right back to me.
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, I would love to see Daniel Bryan just
Be like, "No. No."
give me after set it up for SummerSlam, I would say. Really really drag this one out a little bit. 2 weeks before, maybe 3 to 4 weeks before SummerSlam. Have this whole thing go down and he realizes, I've become Bray Wyatt. I've got the giant long beard. I'm ranting about Mother Earth instead of Sister Abigail, but I've got my followers and I've got a driven car. Just seeing him have that revelation and a breakdown of just what have I become in the middle of the ring?
In kind of playing into what we'll talk about at some point during the 2010 Rumble, I would love to see them do some kind of mixture of Bray Wyatt and Straight Edge Society CM Punk.
Yeah.
DB's preaching this Mother Earth gimmick, and he's got his followers, and they're loyal followers. They'll do whatever he says, and then it, just like you said, it all of a sudden clicks.
Yeah. Just one day, Bray just comes out and just points it out and like, look what you've become.
Like you said, he's got the long beard, he's got the funny little hat and a Hawaiian shirt on.
I don't know if not the Hawaiian shirt, a flannel.
Yeah.
Just take it from the southeast up to the northwest and be like, I've become Bray. Instead of it being from the swamps, it's from the Pac
hipsters.
Northwest. Yeah.
The hipsters. He's a hipster Bray Wyatt.
I think it would be glorious.
It would, but that's not going to happen.
No, I can hope, but yeah, probably won't happen. Anyways, up next, back in 2010, was the Women's Championship match.
And how long was this match, Ryan?
Women's Championship match was 20 seconds.
Oh.
So, heads up, everyone. Here comes the swearing.
Yeah, this is going to get hot real quick. So, if you got kids listening, pause it.
Okay, what the fuck was this shit in 2010? I wasn't watching. You were. What the fuck was that?
So this is the midst of the WWE doesn't care about their divas.
They weren't even divas. This was the women's belt. We didn't have the divas crap yet.
They didn't have it, but they were calling them divas at this point.
They were calling them divas, but it was still the women's championship.
So Michelle McCool is the women's champ, and she's got a match against Mickie James. And this is Mickie kind of at the tail end of her first run with WWE.
Right. This is just before Mickie left, which, given what this angle was, don't blame her at all.
The angle was Michelle McCool and Layla, who would eventually become Laycool, a.k.a. the Mean Girls of WWE at the time.
It was the Beautiful People gimmick from TNA.
But turned up to like 12. So they're calling Mickie James Piggy James because, quote, Mickey's fat.
That is so incredibly fucked up. Mickie is so not even remotely fat. Who gives a fuck if she was fat? What the ever-loving fuck?
So think about that. Could you imagine if they had done this with, I mean, they kind of did, but they were a little bit nicer about it with Nia Jax?
Right, the whole bullying thing. You can do the bullying thing. I'm not against heels being heels because, cool. Getting heat can be done, but you can do it in a way without actually sending a real shitty message to any little girls, any little boys, any little kids watching this. Like, cool, being the heel is bad. Hey, you shouldn't make fun of fat people. Hey, why does it even need to be like... I'm going to stop myself from going off on that rant, but fuck this angle. This is a fucking travesty. The whole match was fucking abysmal. It was 2 moves and done. Fuck it.
The only plus is that Mickie got the payoff to get the belt in a complete and utter squash match.
Right.
But... don't get me wrong, I'm not condoning any of that. But
at least the right person won.
Right. The only thing that I would attribute this to is if anybody's been watching more recently, the stuff that was happening when Mickie was, quote, old.
Yeah.
Mickey's under the age of, I believe, 40.
Right, I don't believe she's over 40.
I don't know about 35, but she's around there. How is that old, and how is she fat compared to, I don't know, The Undertaker, who's pushing 60?
Right.
Or Big Show, who was at this point in WWE in 2010 500 and something pounds.
Super. Like, it's such just a moronic way to go with the whole thing. And there would have been so many better, like, even if you want to go with the weight thing, go, oh, you're just a little tomboy, because she was kind of doing like the country singer-ish gimmick, not quite
Yeah.
that you would do fully in TNA, but ish.
Right.
Go, you're just a tomboy, you're all athletic, I'm super sexy and a supermodel.
Right. Like,
Yeah, you could have pulled it with Michelle McCool, except, yeah.
I mean, you could have pulled it with Layla easily.
Right.
But I mean, the fact that over the course of this night, the women's match lasts 20 seconds, and then you have Beth Phoenix enter the men's Royal Rumble and have a better showing than your women's championship match.
sure did.
Beth eliminates the Great Khali and beats.
We'll get to that in a second. Let
me finish the
Okay.
part about where she beats the snot out of CM Punk for a little bit.
Sure does. Yeah. You literally have Beth Phoenix looking better than the entire rest of the women's division by being in the men's division. Why wasn't...
What?
Yeah. Thanks, 2010 booking.
So
2019.
let's compare that to 2019, where arguably the women's Rumble match was better than the men's Rumble match this year.
So let's put the Rumble match off a little bit. Let's get to that at the end. Let's do the two women's title matches.
Both of them were better than anything that happened in 2010.
The entrances alone took longer than the match, and it was easily way better. So, first one of the night was The Man versus Asuka.
The Man, Becky Lynch,
The Man, Becky Lynch, yes.
for the SmackDown Women's title, which
For SmackDown's belt, yep.
which was, again, one of those where the two of them you would expect 12 out of 10, 11 out of 10.
Yep.
I would say we got an 8, 8
Again,
and a half.
yeah. Right. That seems to have been a theme with the 2019 Rumble, was everything was set up to be, like we were saying, an 11, a 12 out of 10. What we got was much better than your standard WWE fare, but just not quite what everyone was hoping for, I feel like.
Right. The matches were better than other pay-per-views throughout the year, or throughout last year.
Yeah.
And I think they're just trying to hold on a couple of things until Mania
Keep it a little
shows
bit
up.
in your pocket, give you somewhere to go, which is totally fair and understandable, but I think there was a lot more anticipation going into it than was kind of given, which, again, was fair.
Right.
It was still really, really good,
Yeah.
but it could have been
absolutely
great.
And so the SmackDown women's match was the better out of the two,
Definitely.
but
Really great a lot of great wrestling between Asuka and Becky, especially like both fighting for submissions, both using each other's submissions on the other. It was just
that's something we haven't seen in a while with trading finishers like that.
right. It was great seeing Becky suddenly grab Asuka in the Asuka lock, seeing Asuka suddenly roll into an armbar on Becky. Like,
And then try to pull her arm back like the disarmer.
this was two really good professionals being really good in the ring together, which I don't know if Becky ever worked Asuka back in Japan. I don't know if their timing ever lined up properly.
I don't know, but they had some solid chemistry.
Yeah, they had really good chemistry, and I really liked this. It possibly could have been the match of the night, for me at least.
Yeah,
It was
I'd
way
agree
up
with
there.
that.
Asuka ends up winning with the Asuka lock, which I'm fine with because Asuka needed to be rebuilt a little bit. She, going into WrestleMania last year, she was great, unstoppable, hadn't been beaten in NXT, hadn't been beaten in WWE.
And then that
Charlotte-
fell off a cliff.
Yeah, that real far fell off a cliff. She ends up winning. She does great in the triple threat ladder match, but there's some legitimacy to what Becky was saying. You never beat me.
Right. And if you're going to build up somebody who's going to have a marquee match at WrestleMania, why not have them go over arguably the hottest women's talent in professional wrestling right now?
I'd say possibly the hottest talent. She's the hottest talent in the WWE right now.
Oh, in WWE easily. The
She's-
only one I'd argue with is Kenny.
Kenny. I was going to say right now she's possibly bigger just because she's a little bit more present and a little bit more active right now because Kenny's kind of in the mystery zone.
But 7-star match.
Yeah.
Checkmate.
So, all right, fair enough. But anyways, I thought it was a great match.
Oh yeah, it was solid.
So,
Then we moved to the Raw Women's title match.
Rowdy Ronda Rousey. Ugh.
Which still not great, but better than anything that happened in 2010.
Well, a cow walking into the arena and taking a dump on the entrance aisle would have been better than what happened in 2010.
Fair point.
So, yeah, versus Sasha Banks.
Yep, Ronda versus Sasha, which was
Ronda needs to stop talking to the crowd during the match.
Ronda needs to just not talk.
As we would find out on Monday night, yes, Ronda needs to not speak anymore.
And it's because of how easily she can let the crowd influence her.
She gets very easily rattled.
And it's still, I think, stemming from she's still kind of green.
Still kind of happy to be here.
Right. And she's reacting to the crowd because she's happy to be here. Because when she comes out, they cheer for her. So she's got the grin on her face and she wants to break the fourth wall and talk.
Cool, but she used to be in legitimate fights where people were cheering and booing her for who
Right.
she was. She should be able to get over this and go out there and do her job.
You would think that.
Like, honestly, is talking in front of 48,000 people tougher than fighting in front of 15?
Eh?
Like, I feel like I would probably be a little bit more nervous to be in a shoot fight in front of 15,000 people than I would be talking in front of 48,000.
Right.
After a certain number, after X thousand of people, I don't think it's really mattering how many more thousand you add. It's as nerve-wracking as it's going to get being in front of thousands.
Right. So the match overall was not great.
It was sloppy because Ronda's sloppy because she's a fighter and not a wrestler.
Right. I mean, there were some moves where I thought Ronda was going to separate her own shoulder because she wasn't. It didn't look like she was doing them properly.
So
I want to correct myself because we had an actual wrestler on last week.
right.
I don't know how those moves are supposed to go. However, I know when something is bending the wrong way and looks like something is not going to work.
So Ronda's rolling judo throw, which I guess is now being called the Piper's Pit.
Yep.
It looked like it's supposed to be a legitimate judo throw. It's supposed to legitimately hurt. It looks like she almost legitimately landed on Sasha's head twice. That's not what is supposed to happen in wrestling.
Right. And it also ended up. So the way that she sets it up is almost like a Samoan drop,
Yeah.
but her arms are in very awkward places when she starts it.
Right. It's almost like she has her arms too low and is trying to like weirdly let the other person crucifix her or something.
Yeah. I mean, every time I've seen a Samoan drop, it's one arm with the legs. You don't hook the other arm around the head because it's going to pull your shoulder back. So you just let it go.
Right. And also lets the other person kind of figure out how they want to take the bump.
Right. And every time she does this Piper's Pit, it looks like she's going to separate one of her shoulders because she's hooking the head too far back.
Yeah. It's like she's really, which I guess on one hand is good because she's kind of letting the other person determine the positioning, but
Well, and on top of that, though, if she wasn't, because you could clearly tell at points when she gets put into an armbar and other things like that, you could tell that Ronda has to be some kind of double jointed.
yeah.
However, that's only going to last so long.
Yeah. So I will say this. I feel like Ronda does a great job selling when she's hurt.
Yeah.
That was actually, she did some, Sasha put her in like the bank statement once or twice, I believe, and it looked legitimate like she was in a ton of pain.
And the other thing too that Ronda's been doing very well is she's been keeping things consistent. So if she if one of her arms is targeted and that arm gets beat up, she sells holding that arm for the duration of the match.
Right. Let's not try to say that we would be any better in her position. We're
Yeah,
doing a lot I will completely acknowledge I'm doing a lot of armchair quarterbacking here.
Right.
However, she is being paid probably more than most of the other women there.
She's 100% being paid more than the other women there.
Cool. Your talking isn't doing it. Your in-ringing work isn't doing it. I don't think you're worth it.
No.
Which isn't to say she has no value whatsoever. I don't think she's delivering on what kind of was promised.
I would 100% agree with that. At this point, Sasha carried that match last night.
Definitely.
Sasha is more valuable to WWE than Ronda Rousey is.
So let me say my very last statement on Ronda here. What really bothered me at the very end of the match was as soon as the match ended, she kind of grabbed Sasha's hand while Sasha was still selling, being dead on the ground. Ronda comes over and like kind of grabs her hand and is kind of like just trying to squeeze her hand and thank her for the match. And
Right.
no, like let Sasha get up, then try to come to her like, oh, that was so good, we're buddy buddy, and give Sasha that space to be like, don't you do that to me. Don't talk down to me like this. How dare you? Like,
Right. Do it like, oh, I don't know, every other stare down after a match.
right, like don't stare her down, like act like you were so happy about that match and it was such a great competition, and give Sasha that room to react,
Yeah.
which much like her wrestling style, she doesn't know how to give the other person the room to do what they need to do.
Right.
I think that's the biggest complaint about Ronda I have. She crowds it, and that goes for everything. She crowds her positioning. She crowds her... Obviously, on Monday night, we saw her trying to crowd in her promo to nothingness.
To Becky at the end there, where she's literally inches from Becky's face, whereas when Becky's doing her promos, she's a good foot and a half
Well,
back.
not even that, just like cramming stuff in. Like she was going like this, and oh, by the way, I just remembered that we're the same age. Like if you're gonna stop and remember something, give yourself a beat to remember it
Yeah.
instead of. She clearly had a script and she was hitting these bullet points, and this is what happens when someone is nervous.
Right.
This is legitimately what happens in a public speaking class when you're nervous. You very quickly hit point, because in your head,
The quicker I get through it, the quicker it's done.
yeah, I need to get through this. I need to remember this. I'm panicking. I have so much adrenaline pumping through me that my heart's racing. I'm just amped up and I'm burning through it.
Mm-hmm.
The material needs to breathe. Ronda
Yeah.
doesn't do that physically when wrestling. She doesn't do it verbally when speaking. She's not a professional. She's not at the level she needs to be for where she's at.
No, not at all. To be honest, if she didn't have the name recognition, she would be mid-card NXT at this point.
At best.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway,
How about the World Heavyweight Championship from 2010?
I don't remember. Oh, that was the good one.
I'm like, how do you not remember this? This is what you were trying to sell me on this whole event about.
I was going to say, I don't remember which one that was. So we got Rey Mysterio versus The Undertaker. And this is what I had said previously when we had gone back a couple weeks ago, and you said that you were never a big fan of Undertaker because,
He
as
doesn't
you put
sell. He's slow. He's...
it, that's not the case from 2000 and probably 5 forward.
Right. So watching this match really did give me a good understanding of where all of the more recent Undertaker fans came from. From my days, he was boring. He was the big invincible dead guy that didn't sell, and meh.
Now, Taker sells.
He's working his ass off in there.
He moves. He's got more moves.
Yeah. So
and he's telling a lot more of a story
yeah,
with who he's with compared to what he was doing back then.
right. And this match with Rey Mysterio, he was selling his ass off for Ray and totally impressed me. Really great match. Ray was flying around for Taker. Taker was selling for Ray. It was just really great to see. Best match on the card by far.
Oh yeah, I'd honestly give that match probably a 9 out of 10.
And it was just a really great way to do the big man versus little man dynamic.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was fun to watch because Taker didn't act like a. So he acted like a big man, but he sold like a regular guy.
Right. He sold like everything Ray did was super legit, super just as impactful as if someone, a foot taller than Ray had been doing it.
Yeah. Easily the best match on the 2010 card.
Easily. So, going from big man versus little man match to big man versus little man match 2019. Brock Lesnar versus Finn Balor.
I have my issues with the end of this match. I'll let you go through
so, yeah, let's
everything
start.
first.
I thought this was a great match and made both men look much better off for it. So,
I thought it was also a great match. Both guys came out looking great. The end killed it.
we'll get to that in a second. So,
I'm not letting you forget that the end killed it.
I'm not gonna forget. You've made this abundantly clear all day as we've talked that you would like to speak about this. I thought they did an amazing job at making Brock look vulnerable and Finn look amazing.
And it was a great way to do it with the corner spot of the announcer table.
Right. So during the match, it like very short succession, Finn shoves Brock into the announce table, into the corner of it. So Brock's gut goes right into the corner of the desk twice.
Like the actual point of the corner.
Yeah. And so Brock is just selling like he's got a broken rib, like he's got a ruptured spleen, like his diverticulitis is acting back up or something.
Oh, no.
It was just a great way of doing this and making it feel pretty natural, but not making it look like Finn had to necessarily resort to some underhanded method to do it. He just, hey, it was there. He did it. It worked. And it just kept, it was great.
And it set up perfectly for when Finn would later on go for the coup de grace.
Right.
The double stomp directly to that spot that hurt Brock.
Yep.
And Brock was selling everything that Finn did, just like Taker sold for Ray. Anytime Finn kicked Brock in the stomach, Brock screamed in pain.
Yeah, it was like right back down and reset the whole thing. So, yeah, finish. Finn goes for the coup de grace, hits it, but Brock then immediately rolls it into the Kimura, and Finn fights it for a little bit and taps.
Which, this part of the ending makes sense.
And then Brock gets a little pissy and suplexes Finn around the ring 4 or 5 times, and then F5s him for good measure.
So the Kimura part makes sense because it's a move that doesn't require Brock's midsection. It doesn't require him to turn or pivot or use any of that ab strength that the F5 or a German suplex would. However, when Brock picks Finn up after the match, tosses him around like a rag doll, F5s him, to me, you essentially undid everything that you were trying to do during the match. Finn was supposed to look strong. Finn was supposed to look like he was a legitimate threat to Brock, which he did, up until the part where Brock starts huffing and puffing, turns into what were they calling the face that he makes while he's in the Kimura?
Bork face?
He turns into Bork face, where he gets super red and closes his eyes when he's throwing Finn around. It just didn't make sense.
So that's totally legitimate, and to an extent, I don't necessarily disagree with some of that. In my mind, though, I feel like it was more like Brock kind of snapped afterwards and was so pissed off that he so far underestimated Finn that Finn did so much better than Brock was expecting that he was just like, completely outraged. And to me, it put Finn on the level of Cena or Roman in Brock's mind. I felt like Brock had to do to Finn, like he had to completely decimate this person because how dare you have the audacity to hurt me? You hurt me. That can't stand. I need to kill you now.
So here's my retort to that is, yeah, it might have put Finn on the level of Roman and Cena. However, Brock's matches with Roman and Cena weren't that good.
No, they weren't that good, but
They could have put Finn on the same level as AJ or as DB, where both of them were legitimate threats.
right,
Brock
like,
didn't snap at the end of those.
because they weren't real threats like Finn was. But yeah.
It-
I get what you're saying. I don't think you're even necessarily wrong, but
As soon as that happened, it took me out of the match. Like I was all in on this match, and then that happened.
that did kind of crap on it a good bit. I think we both agree it would have been super awesome if, as Brock was leaving the ring, the house lights dropped and a red spotlight hit Finn laying in the ring and started the Demon Heartbeat music, and you saw Finn starting to stir, and then Brock like thinking about going back in, and then Paul Heyman just being like, "Nope, nope, we are nope,
Nope. Yeah, let's get out of here. We don't
we're
want
gonna
none of
nope
that.
the fuck right out of here."
Right. That if they had ended it that way, it would have brought me right back into that match.
Yeah, so definitely a missed opportunity there. I don't think it was necessarily wrong what they did, but I definitely agree that it probably did take away a little bit more than it added. So
Yeah. All right. So next we have
going back to 2010,
it's the actual Rumble match, is it not?
it is.
So this is one of my favorite Rumble matches, and there wasn't any real like crazy like guest
There weren't
wrestlers.
no super huge surprises, well, except for one guy, but
Yeah, it's not like, the past ones where all of a sudden Diesel comes walking out.
right, kind of no real throwback entrance or anything.
But it was overall a good match. I mean, at the beginning, the best part of the match, 100%, was CM Punk's straight edge sermon.
Right, the straight edge sermon part of this thing. So like the first 5 or 6 entrance worth of people, this was fantastic. It was basically Punk cutting an extended promo
During the match.
during the match. Yeah, it was great. That was really cool. It was definitely a different moment. I definitely appreciated that. We're,
He's-
of course, Punk fans, so
Right. And if you've never seen some of CM Punk's Straight Edge Society stuff, he
which
actually,
I hadn't.
he actually wrote all of that.
It was super good. It really showed him trying to be like that charismatic but sleazy.
He was a cult leader.
Right. But it also had that whole kind of chicken shit angle to it too, which was amazing.
Oh yeah, because he would hide behind Doc Gallows the entire time.
Well, but like during this match especially, he'd be like
Wait, no,
yeah,
no. I can save you.
My favorite was when he was talking to Ryder. It's like, no, Zach, listen, I could pops him in the head with the mic. That was great.
You have potential. You could be a star. I could save you.
Yeah, that was great. Loved that.
And Punk went with this for probably 6, 7 people.
Yeah, it lasted a while. It really kind of made a great lasting impression.
And it stopped real quick as soon as Triple H came out.
Yep, which is kind of ironic looking at what would eventually happen. I hate foreshadowing sometimes.
Right. So as we're going on through the match, it's relatively uneventful after CM Punk gets dumped out.
Yeah, eventually Shawn Michaels comes in. There's the whole story that we're telling about Shawn Michaels being desperate to go to WrestleMania and face The Undertaker again.
Yep. And this would eventually lead to Shawn versus Taker in Shawn's retirement match.
Right. So there was a cool story there. And then
The stuff with Beth Phoenix coming out and smacking Punk around for a little bit was
Yeah,
pretty solid.
that was entertaining.
So we get down to number 27, 26, 27 area.
Yep.
But then all of a sudden, I believe his number was 28, correct? Or was he
29.
No, he was 29. You're right. All of
Like
a sudden,
27 or 28 was Cena.
yeah. And then all of a sudden, you have Edge's music hit. And it's the crazy drum beat.
Yep. They Metalingus drum riffed.
And it's the return of the Rated R superstar who had just been gone for 8 months after a neck surgery.
Was he rated R for really out of shape?
I mean,
He was.
if you had 8 months off of a physical activity that you normally did, I'm sure you would look like that too.
I mean, probably, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, he was in good shape by my standards, but
Right.
he was not in good shape by Edge standards. Was all.
Right. He definitely looked better at points, which I mean it makes sense that he's got to come back.
Completely legitimate reasons for being in the shape he was.
But he was supposed to be gone for upwards of 14 months.
Yeah, so he was back 6 to 7 months earlier than people would have expected.
Yeah, he comes back after 8 months, and it's a shock because nobody expected him to be there. And this was the start of Edge going to SmackDown and doing the good guy Edge.
I was about to say, this was after La Familia and all of that stuff.
I believe it was right after that.
He'd gotten hurt doing that, and then...
This was good guy Edge.
So about to say, I think he had to retire within 2 to 3 years after this.
Yep. So 2 years later, he retires.
So, yeah, Alberto Del Rio would have been coming soon after this the first time.
Yep. He ends up going on because, spoiler alert, he wins the 2010 Rumble match.
Edge is your winner.
He goes on to face Jericho
Yes.
at Mania.
Jericho gets the belt off Taker at Elimination Chamber of this year.
Yep.
And then Edge versus Jericho, and then that frees Taker up to face HBK.
Yes, and Edge doesn't win the belt, but he would very soon after that win it 2 more times before he retires, making him a 11-time?
Way up there.
Pretty sure it was 11-time heavyweight champ. But it was just one of those because I didn't realize, much like we were talking about DiBiase earlier, I didn't realize I liked Edge until there was no Edge.
That's fair. So, overall, the 2010 Rumble was decent. The spots we mentioned were definitely the highlights. The problem was, besides the spots we mentioned, there wasn't a whole lot there.
Yeah. It was lackluster.
Yeah, and we would be remiss before we completely wrap up with 2010 here. The announcing.
Okay. So this is where my swearing is going to start.
Please do.
I fucking hate Matt Stryker. He is, to take a page out of SCU, he is the worst announcer that I have ever heard. I could not stand this man throughout the entire pay-per-view.
Yeah. So I don't have as much hatred for him specifically as you do. However, I think the trio of King, Cole, and Stryker was abysmal.
So remember, I have been watching consecutively throughout all of Matt Stryker being on ECW and on SmackDown and being an announcer. The parts that he even did well, when it was just a 2-man booth, I still fucking hated.
Totally fair. And I'm not saying even him being part of any 2-man booth would be any better. You need the right person to pair with him, I feel like.
And
Which
the two that are there are not those two.
Certainly not. And thinking about it, he is a heel play-by-play guy.
Which makes no sense.
It doesn't.
You can't do that.
I mean, they did it with Cole for a little while, but that was abysmal too.
Yeah. So my 2 biggest gripes were during this, whenever somebody gets choked, like Kane's going for a choke slam or Big Show's going for a choke slam.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Striker makes a noise while Cole and King are talking. Like, you just shut the fuck up. And then when Edge comes out, oh, it's a big surprise. Why don't you just do what King does? What? Give him the, oh my goodness. Matt Striker gives us a holy Don't censor yourself.
So,
Ugh.
if you've heard any of the announcers on various podcasts talking, like Kevin Kelly, Don Callis, all talking about Jim Ross and like a lot of the hints Jim Ross has given them, it's to speak in sound bites and to lay up. No one just to shut up and let the moment speak for itself.
Matt Striker doesn't do that.
No. I wonder if it's because Matt Striker was the former substitute teacher that became a wrestler. I wonder if it's because as a teacher you kind of need to keep talking or else everyone's going to get unruly and out of hand.
I mean, I could see that.
I'm not trying to pardon what he's doing. I'm just kind of more curious about where it came from.
I could see that. And I mean, the guy's got a great voice.
He's knowledgeable. The problem was he was trying to be a smarmy heel, like Bobby Heenan or something, but he wasn't as funny as Heenan was. He wasn't.
He's not even as good as Corey Graves.
Oh, certainly not.
I despise Matt Striker as an announcer more than I despised that women's title match.
Fair enough. All right. We got to get through this. We've gone over an hour already. We still got 2 Rumbles to talk about.
All right. Let's hit the Rumbles quick then.
All right. Women's Rumble 2019. Holy shit, Rhea Ripley is a monster.
So good. If you haven't seen her, go back and watch her in Mae Young Classic 1 and 2, and then watch her match against Toni Storm when she wins the Women's UK match, or title.
Riot Squad was amazing.
So good. So good. They need to be the first women's tag champs.
They do. Liv Morgan in, out, whatever. Sarah Logan in for a little bit, out. Then both come out with Ruby Riott and just start dragging people out.
They were protecting her so well throughout the entire match.
It was amazing. What would happen is the Riot Squad all came out. The two, Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan, would drag someone out of the ring if they got too close to where they were, beat the hell out of them, throw him into Ruby, who would then pitch him over the top rope.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Candice Michelle.
Candice LeRae.
I'm thinking 2010 too much. Candice LeRae shows up. Awesome.
Looks great. What both men and women's Rumbles did really well was make about a half dozen people in each match look golden.
They took the people from NXT that people weren't really sure of and rocket strapped them.
Yeah. They took Rhea Ripley, made her look amazing.
Who's Lacey Evans?
Oh, right. Very first one out. Number 1, Lacey Evans. People don't know who she is. I didn't know who she was.
Yeah.
She was a powerhouse.
She's been doing great in NXT. And they're essentially building her to be a better version of Michelle McCool.
Yeah, like the pin-up strong thing, but still heelish about it was really good.
Overall, it was just a fantastic. I thought the Women's Rumble was better than the men's.
Very, very well could be. Oh, someone I want to give credit in the Women's Rumble match that we normally hate on, Charlotte Flair looked absolutely deranged, and it was amazing.
She looked insane, and it brought a whole nother level to what's going through her mind,
right,
trying to get a title match.
The whole fallen princess of wrestling thing
would be a great story.
I think that has a lot of legs. The one thing that I've always kind of felt lacked with Charlotte was any sort of sympathy. I've never felt bad for her. Therefore, I've never really wanted to see her succeed. I've never felt like she had any sort of need for validation. She never had any sort of legitimate, I'm here because I'm trying to do something instead of a sense of entitlement of, oh, I'm just getting this because of daddy type
Right.
thing, which, as Jordan spoke about, Charlotte is clearly a talented athlete. She's clearly picking things up at an amazing rate,
Yeah.
but up until now, we haven't been fans. I wouldn't say I'm even a fan yet, but I respected the hell out of that performance Sunday night.
Yeah. Her expressions, the hair, her mannerisms, they brought her to a different level.
Yeah. I'm a fan of quasi-broken Charlotte.
I would take that.
So, anyways, 2019 Women's Rumble. We had someone get hurt earlier in the night that couldn't quite make it to the ring.
Yep. So all of a sudden, everybody comes running down to check on Lana as she's hurt.
Lana
On the
got
side.
hurt during that Rusev Shinsuke match. She was the reason Rusev lost because Rusev was tending to Lana on the ring apron, moved. Shinsuke was tied up with Lana. Rusev went to attack. Shinsuke moved. Rusev nailed Lana off the ring apron. She hurt her ankle. Rusev got Kinshasa'd on the back of the head and pinned.
Yep. So everybody's checking on Lana as she's hurt ringside or ramp side and can't make it to the ring.
Nia Jax comes out like number 29, lays the absolute living boots to Lana.
Yep. And we get somebody else come out at number 30. Or
It
Carmella
was
comes
Carmella
out.
because of the thing.
And Fit Finley's tending to Lana.
Yep, we have all of the trainers and Fit coming out tending to her.
And then Becky walks out.
Becky Lynch walks out and is like, she can't do it, put me in. And the crowd goes batshit.
Rightfully so, because Becky ends up winning the match.
Yep, there's some shenanigans, and Becky gets herself a little bit of a leg injury, but the fight between Becky and Charlotte, and again, this is really where Charlotte's new mannerisms
Mm-hmm.
were really paying off. The absolute look of, are you fucking kidding me?
Yep.
When it's down to Charlotte and Becky, and so Becky's leg gets hurt on the outside, yada, yada, yada.
They're
Looks like
about-
they're going to hand it to Charlotte.
Yep.
Becky rolls back and is like, no, I'm doing this.
And the one thing that I liked so much was Charlotte always does that little heel hook that Flair used to do where he would wrap their leg around his knee and drop down
Yeah, like
to
the
his
little knee
knees.
breaker thing.
Charlotte did that like 4 or 5 times because she was so frustrated.
Yeah, she was like, F you, Becky, I'm ripping your leg off. This isn't happening anymore. It's my time again.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So yeah, so a lot of credit that we don't normally give to Charlotte. Overall, a really great Rumble match, I thought.
Yeah,
Like we said, it really highlighted a lot of people, and it made a lot of people look like $1 million.
yeah, absolutely. And so did the men's rumble.
But say, continuing that trend, the men's Rumble really did an even better job of making people look fantastic.
You have Andrade, you have Mustafa Ali, Pete Dunne, Aleister Black, Johnny Gargano.
Drew Mack.
Yeah. All of these people who the crowd kind of knows, they might not know, come out, and some of them you think might actually win. Like when Pete Dunne comes out and he starts putting the boots to Drew Mack.
Yeah, a lot of these guys who, if you're a hardcore WWE fan and you watch the network and you're watching NXT and you're watching NXT UK, you know these guys, you probably love these guys. But your average fans probably don't know much about these guys necessarily. And they came out and made them look like absolute stars.
Yeah, they showcased the hell out of these guys.
Right, which I think was something 2010 was lacking. And I think, again, here's a good compare and contrast point. The 2010 Rumble was kind of overall, except for the winner was kind of cool and exciting.
It was to get from point B to point A as quickly as possible.
Right. it set out to do one thing and it did it. Whereas the 2019 Rumble, the winner was kind of, okay. But the match itself had such great moments and really helped build a number of superstars.
Yeah, absolutely. It made, like we said, it made these guys look so much better and brings legitimacy to them as soon as they come up to the main roster.
Right. It introduced these guys. It made them look like $1 million. It'll help them when they go back to where they were coming from and once they come to the main roster. It was really everything you could have hoped for in a Rumble, except for kind of the finish. I mean,
I'm not upset Seth won, but other people would have been better.
right. It was kind of a foregone conclusion, but it was fine, but it was just fine.
Yeah.
Seth's reaction to winning was kind of cool. He's like, holy shit, I won?
Yeah.
That was cool.
And the reaction he had with Triple H later on
The next night on Raw.
was pretty cool. They were doing like the father-son thing, as Dean Ambrose pointed out.
Yeah.
Trips was like, I'm glad you did the point. I'm glad you got to point at the sign because I know you've always wanted to do that.
Yeah, so it was definitely cool. It wasn't bad. It's just, it didn't feel like the winner was super huge. It was like, okay.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you have an idea when certain like 5 or 6 guys come out. That guy could win, that guy could win, that guy could win, or this guy could win.
Yeah, and it was kind of the most obvious, and it's probably going to be that guy.
Yeah.
But
and when it boiled down to the very last probably 3 people, you were like, okay, this one's the one that's going to win.
yeah, so we didn't mention the Nia Jax spot in the men's Rumble. That was cute.
I laughed hysterically when she got RKO'd.
When she got 619 into the RKO into the
Super kicked
super
in,
kicked. Oh,
super kicked into a 619 and then 619 into an RKO. As I'm watching this, I'm like, yes, RKO the shit out of her.
yeah, there was a little bit of pent up frustration that everyone had with her over the whole Becky Lynch thing, and I think she probably gets too much hate for the Becky Lynch thing. I think there is a legitimate point where she is a problem. She needs to go back to NXT. She needs better training. She's just dangerous out there. However, she's a human being. She's probably just making mistakes. She doesn't need to be killed for that.
She doesn't need to be RKO'd into the concrete.
She doesn't need to legitimately get death threats. That's clearly too far.
Right.
All right. So that's 2 Royal Rumbles.
Yeah. A total of 3 Royal Rumble matches.
Yeah, 2. Yeah. Apparently I'm having a glitch like Renee had on Sunday. That was really funny, too. I'm glad
it was great.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
if you've never heard that commentary, I forget which match it was during. I think it was during the Women's Rumble.
Yes.
Renee tries to say something, and she just stutters it and stumbles, and then tries to correct herself and stumbles again, and tries to catch herself again and stumbles. And it was just really cute, and she acknowledged it in a really funny way. So it was nice to see the announcers being human too.
The announcing for the 2019 Rumble was fantastic. Corey Graves saying that somebody just got kicked in the soul.
Yes, there was a lot of good lines.
Or when Elias is taking his time to play his song, and Corey Graves goes, "Yeah, I guess I don't get it. We've been here for 4.5 hours, and he's just taking his sweet time."
That was a great shoot comment, not meant to be a shoot comment.
I died.
I forget what was the other line where someone was like, "Of all the things I've seen tonight, that was the most recent."
Yes.
The commentary was on point on the 2019 Rumble. So,
All right, plugs.
Do it.
Facebook, This Week in Wrestling History. What is it? TWIWH?
Yep.
Twitter, WrestleHistPod.
YouTube is,
Search for This Week in Wrestling History Podcast.
and look for our silly, funny logo.
Yep.
80s looking, you'll recognize it. And email us any comments, feedback, anything you want to hear from us coming up. WrestlingHistoryPodcast@gmail.com.
And we're on Spotify, Google Play Music, and iTunes.
All right, we're history.